This is round 7 of the 1989 FF1M season, and it comes to you from the ultra-charming, ultra-quick Hockenheim ring located in the Heidelberg region in Germany. And the last round saw a very controversial affair, not so much at the front where Ayrton Senna pretty much dominated the entire race at Silverstone from pole position, but it was Nigel Mansell who was running second with just a couple of laps to go, but Alvat Jean Lacey tried to unlap himself going into Beckett's, and it went horribly wrong for the pair of them. Jean Lacey made an absolute mess of that and cost Mansell second position, and so instead went to Alain Prost in the FJR, who was lucky to even be still in the race because he had an incident where he just spun off at Stowe Corner. Second mistake in as many races. He had one at the French Grand Prix as well while leading. Third in that race was Nelson Piquet for JGR Meister, and as a result of that, he now leads the championship by 11 points from Ayrton Senna. Nigel Mansell sits on 17 points. Alain Prost, with his second place in Silverstone, sits fourth in the championship on 13 points. Does currently look good for Nelson Piquet. Slightly less comfortable for JGR Meister in the Constructors' Championship. They do hold an 8-point lead over Tornado, and Darkfire move up to third thanks to Senna's second win of the season. FJR sit fourth on 19 points. Willows sit fifth on 17, and Gajera sit sixth on 15 points. Most of that will have been down to Gerhard Berger's win in the United States, although his teammate Derek Warwick can contribute some of that with 3 points. He got a fourth position last time out at Silverstone, so that was a good effort from Derek. So now we await the start of the German Grand Prix, where we will see Nigel Mansell start on pole position, and he was nearly 4/10 quicker than Ayrton Senna in the Darkfire. So we had some engine upgrades both in qualifying and the race, and they seem to have benefited Tornado quite a lot, because Maurizio Gugelmin sits fourth on the grid, 1 place behind Derek Warwick. Gerhard Berger sits fifth, 1 place ahead of Pierluigi Martini. A good effort from him in the Unbearable. And then Jonathan Palmer and Alain Prost make up row 4. Prost, the highest placed Renault runner. And then completing the top 10 are the 2 Pedersens of Martin Brundle and Thierry Boutsen. And just looking further down the grid, Johnny Herbert will start 11th, out qualifying his rather embarrassed teammate. You may well look a bit worried, Sunshine, after that incident with Mansell. Chivo will start 12th ahead of Riccardo Patrese, and championship leader Nelson Piquet had a difficult time of it, but will start 14th. Nannini 15th ahead of Alesi 16th, and then Michele Alboreto 17th. Stefano Modena, Reni Arnoux, Stefan Johansson, Satoru Nakajima and Andrea De Cesaris complete the order. So we are just getting ready for the race now, and you can see the yellow banners flying in the background, waving against the wind, and then you can see the crowd in the grandstands surrounding the Nord curve. And there's Nigel Mansell on pole position. Behind him to his right is Ayrton Senna, and immediately behind Mansell is Derek Warwick. On goes the red light, and we wait until the green light goes on. And it looked like Nigel Mansell had a pretty good start from pole position. Senna less so, but he does hold on to second position. Gugelmin's going to challenge Warwick. No, he's not, but he's overtaken by Gerhard Berger going through the first corner, the Nord curve, and now the long run into the acid test. This will be the Jim Clark chicane, and you can see Senna alongside Mansell, side by side on this narrow bit of tarmac. Looks super narrow, looks a bit too narrow for an F1 race, but just wide enough for Senna to take the lead going into the Jim Clark chicane. Behind him, is there going to be a bit of mayhem? There's a bit of brake locking. I think Prost was one of them. He's got his teammate alongside him, but it looks as if they're all well behaved going through the second chicane. Approaching the second chicane now, Mansell and alongside Ayrton Senna. This is Extreme War, and it's going to be an old version of the Ost curve. Plunking the curbs and then the long right. It is Nigel Mansell who leads the race from Ayrton Senna. Derek Warwick in third, and I think Gugelmin got back ahead of Berger at some point. And in sixth, a good start for Jonathan Palmer. One position from his grid slot. Now Senna is alongside Mansell as they break for the Ayrton Senna chicane. Named after yourself, that's just how good you are. And to demonstrate that, Senna is back in the lead once again. Now we approach the first corner of the stadium. Is Mansell close enough? I don't think he is. But anyway, he's going to get into the stadium section eventually. There goes Senna. And then further back, Stefan Johansson is the one who sits last. I think the two unbearables are about to get into combat with one another going into the stadium. And it goes the advantage of... I think it went into the advantage of Eddie Cheever. Senna goes down to complete the first lap. No, it isn't. It's actually Martini who's ahead of Cheever, but Martini not a good start. Down 2 places from his grid slot of 6th. Currently runs in 8th. And now as we go into the mile-long straight, and somebody's had an off at the first corner. Is that Jonathan Palmer? No, it's not. It's one of the unbearables. So let's see who is that. It's a big conflab. There's Nelson Piquet is one of them. Berger is another one. Is that Prost or is it Patrese? It's Patrese, and I think Martini's another one involved as well. So let's see what happens there. Here we see an aftermath of it. Piquet was going to have a go at Patrese. It started by Jonathan Palmer going up the inside of Berger, and Berger just goes wide, completely misjudged the entry point. Martini off, and then Piquet and Patrese all off simultaneously. So turn 1 very slippery at this point. I haven't seen any rain at all, so it does look like turn 1 is very slippery in low downforce configuration as Martini and Berger have a race to see who will rejoin first. I think Martini won that. Now we have got Gugelmin ahead of Warwick. We passed Warwick going into the first chicane. Now Warwick is going to try and have a go back at Maurizio, but not yet, as they clunk the inside curb of the Ost curve. And look, in 6th position, Johnny Herbert. And he gets Shake and Bake's first point of the season. Beck had his first finish and plan for a mutual campaign so far, important team. And now Johnny Herbert sits in 6th quite comfortably as Warwick retakes 3rd position off of Gugelmin, and now Jonathan Palmer's going to try and have a go at the Pajero driver going into the first corner of the stadium. The advert curve under the Campari Bridge. Braking hard, but not the hardest, going into Ajip, and 4th position for Jonathan Palmer. He's having a good run so far, as have Darkfire of late, because Senna did win his 2nd race of the season. He also had a 5th in Paul Ricard. It could have been more yet again. Jonathan Palmer, I don't think, has scored any points yet. No, he has not, so this is an opportunity for him, as Berger struggles around without a front wing. He's going to be pitting. A replacement nose. So there's Senna and there's Mansell, 1.5 seconds behind. Looks like it's going to be a 2-horse race again because Warwick is already 5.2 seconds off of the lead. That'd be no doubt thanks to his spirited battle with that man there, Maurizio Gugelmin, and weaving a bit under braking for the first chicane. And Jonathan Palmer is about to come under pressure from Gugelmin. as they approach the Ost curve chicane. Gugelmin has a look at the inside as Nelson Piquet pits for a new front wing, presumably. So into the Ost curve, Gugelmin takes fourth. Now can he do something about Derek Warwick, who is right there? Well, Gugelmin has to sort out Jonathan Palmer first of all, because now Palmer is in the slipstream, and look at Johnny Herbert catching them up as well. Here comes Palmer looking at the inside, going into the centre chicane. And that's off position back for Palmer. Gugelmin tries to fight back, but not quite. So now, what can Palmer do about Derek Warwick, who at this point looks like he's holding up the field? There is Alain Prost in ninth position. There's a spinning AJ at the back. It's Modena. Modena's had a spin at the third chicane, the end centre chicane. Now, has he made contact with another driver? He's alongside an Andrew F1, and he tries to chop across in front of him, but overdid it and got onto the grass under braking and went for a wild spin. That was a bit of a careless error from Stefano Modena, as he tried to chop in front of Nannini, I think that was. There's Senna, who's had very poor reliability pretty much all season. The only time it's gone right for him was in the last race at Silverstone. I think Darkfire's reliability is getting a bit better. I think Modena's still trying to recover at the third chicane. Senna sets a new fastest lap at 1 minute 51.435. Extending the gap by just 0.2 of a second over Mansell. Mansell's keeping in touch at this stage. But I think the Darkfire has been the slightly quicker car all season, but a much less reliable one. I think Prost is going to have a look at Martin Brundle down the mile-long straight into the Jim Clark chicane. See what the Renault power is like against the Pedersen power, which is a Ferrari engine. It's not too bad for Renault, actually, as Prost takes 7th or 8th, it's 8th position. Next target is Eddie Cheever, but as long as he can get away from Brundle first of all. He's got a decent gap, but Brundle has got a bit of a slipstream. And just looking at the rest of the order, Brundle boots in 10th, so both Pedersens effectively back to where they were before the start of the race. The big move is Eddie Cheever. He's up to 7th position. And you can see Johnny Herbert in front of him. So Cheever and Herbert have gained the most, 5 positions each. Brundle having to go back at Prost, going into the Ayrton Senna chicane. And Brundle's managed it. It's going to be a bit of a slipstreaming game. And now Prost is going to come under pressure a little bit from Thierry Boutsen, as Palmer's going to take 3rd position away from Warwick to the stadium. He is indeed. Palmer up to 3rd. So Darkfire's running in the top 3 now. I doubt if Palmer can do anything about Mansell, but let's give him a chance first of all. As he rounds the little pith path before the Sud curve, the double right-hander that spells the end of the lap. Around 4.2 miles long. Now, Warwick has got to be careful of Maurizio Gugelmin behind now. Not going into the Nord curve. Get a chance going into the Jim Clark chicane, or maybe just on the straight, because he's already alongside the Gajera driver. Let's see the top speed of this Tornado. That's 310 right now. 311, 312 as he breaks into the first chicane, the Jim Clark chicane. Named after the legendary Scot who won a couple of FF1M championships back in the 60s, but nobody knows about that yet. Oh, Modena's had another spin going out of the Sachs curve. Let's see what happens to him here. So he's having a very messy race. To turn left into the hairpin. And then understeering off. Kind of, he just sort of locked up and he's straddling the curb. And then he turns left and then he spins. Yet another careless one from Modena. So he needs to get his act together. Otherwise, Piquet and Berger will be passing him fairly quickly. Gugelmin is indeed ahead of Warwick. We just about caught that before we switched to Modena's spin. But now Warwick is back in the slipstream of Gugelmin, and he's going to have a look going down the 3rd of the long straight. Alongside Gugelmin under braking for the Senna chicane, and that's 4th position back for Derek Warwick. This is allowing Palmer to pull away slightly and build a bit of a lead and earn Darkfire's opportunity for a double podium finish. We'll need reliability first of all, and I also need to master the pit stops. Palmer locked up a little bit going into the Adjip curve. I think he's okay. Still in 3rd position. We've still got Johnny Herbert in 6th position. I expect Eddie Cheever, he's still in 7th position. Then we got Brundle in 8th with Prost, I assume, in 9th, unless Thierry Boutsen has done something about him there. As we round the Sud curve to start lap 6 for this lot. And Senna extending the gap now. It's 2.4 seconds over Mansell. Warwick just moving to the middle and then back onto the racing line before turning into the Nord curve in an effort to break the slipstream, but it's not worked as Gugelmin has already powered his way back up into 4th position before we even reach the braking zone or even halfway down the mile-long straight. 312 on the speedo once again. Braking hard for the Jim Clark chicane. And there's 3rd position right in front of Gugelmin. Gugelmin has already had a podium in this season. He had that 2nd position at Phoenix, despite 3 collisions. And they were with, if I try and remember, one of them was with Warwick, and then we had one with De Cesaris and Alboreto, I believe, as well. And the first one was with Alboreto, and that sent him upside down, and De Cesaris was sent flipping as well. So he's had a bit of a tough one, but he's made of stern stuff, is Gugelmin. Let's see the gap between himself and Palmer. It was 1.2 seconds as they crossed the 2nd sector point. The 2nd sector point is located somewhere down the... I'll have to double check that. I think it's before the Ost curve. 1st sector's before the Jim Clark chicane, so the 2nd sector must be before the Ost curve. It's a long sector, is this final one. It covers pretty much the half of the circuit. Senna starts his 7th lap, and 7/10 quicker than Mansell on that one. He's starting to stretch his legs now and pull away from the Tornado driver. Gugelmin a 2nd behind Palmer as we start their 7th lap. And he was 4/10 quicker than his own personal best, so he's definitely got the measure over much of the field. There's Prost in 9th position. Oh, Palmer's slowing down. He's got an issue, and that's a shame for him because he looked very quick all weekend and out of the race. That's unfortunate for Jonathan Palmer. So that moves Gugelmin up to 3rd position, 1 place ahead of Derek Warwick. Now up to 4th, Herbert 5th, and Cheever in 6th. So what could be the cause of this retirement for Palmer? They've been plagued by electrical troubles pretty much all season. And it's going to be a while before the marshals get there. Could well be a transmission failure. We normally see that if there's no smoke coming out of the back. I didn't see the car limp, so it does look likely that it will be something wrong in the gearbox. There's Senna, the race leader. That'll be a bit of a worry for him. And behind him, 3.3 seconds now is Mansell. And it's confirmed as a transmission failure. I suspect the gearbox has failed going down the straight. Car now clear, yellow flags removed, and it can resume racing once again. There's Johnny Herbert. He's actually being chased there by Martin Brundle in the Pedersen. Not close enough going into the stadium, so I think he's going to have to wait. In fact, Herbert has lost a position to Eddie Cheever. So Cheever up to 5th position, looking to build on his podium success that he had in the United States Grand Prix, despite starting last on the grid, which was a splendid effort from the local boy when he raced in Phoenix, because he is from Phoenix. So across the line, and Brundle's now going to have a look at Johnny Herbert coming down the long straight, the first of them. There he goes up the inside. Herbert's not defending that. Probably should have covered the middle somewhat because it looks very narrow. There's Brundle up to 6th position. He's going to look for his first points, I think, since, when was it? Pedersen just have the 6 points, so that'll be looking for Brundle's first points since the first race of the season in Brazil. And that'll give him a bit of a boost. Herbert looking to get back up alongside going into the Ost curve. It's a bit narrow here with the flick left and right. Oh, Brundle clunking the curb slightly. Now he's got Alain Prost right up behind him. He's on the wrong side, is Alain. But now he's tucked back into the slipstream, trying to get a bit of a better run going into the braking zone of the Senna chicane. But Brundle choosing to cover the middle ground. Slightly clever, but there is one more long straight to go. Now, can Prost do anything about it? The Renault is not as powerful as the Ferrari in the back of the Pedersen. He's in the slipstream, and he's got a good slipstream. Now, can he get up alongside going into the Adjip curve? And he's got him. 7th position for Prost, and there's more yellow flags out before the Ost curve. I think there's a back marker that has gone out of the race. It's not Piquet. It's not Modena. Now, which one is it? Yellow flags are still out. It's Patrese. Patrese out of the race. So his gearbox has failed. Going down the 2nd straight this time. So that moves Piquet and Berger up another position. So I wonder if that was an after effect of the spin that Patrese had at the first corner. It's Cheever who is closing in on Warwick. Cheever having a splendid race so far. And behind there, Prost is closing in on Johnny Herbert. So Prost looking for points at a circuit not favouring the FJR team. Partly down to the engine, because the Renault is not as powerful compared to the Ferrari and the Honda, especially the Ferrari. The Honda have caught up, as Mansell was quickest in qualifying. So Cheever clunking the curb slightly, but no problem for the American, as he is now in the slipstream of Derek Warwick. He's definitely not quick in the race so far. He's dropped 4 seconds behind Gugelmin, who sits right there in 3rd position. Both Tornadoes now in the top 3. Warwick defending slightly, but moving back onto the racing line before turning into the Senna chicane. Eddie Cheever now in a slipstream, and Prost is also in a slipstream of Johnny Herbert. Is it enough of a slipstream before the braking zone of the Adjip curve? We'll find out shortly. Warwick defending the middle ground once again, so for now, Warwick holds on to 4th position. I think Herbert holding on to 6th as well. Only a couple of seconds behind this battling duo. And they're about to start lap 10. Nearly at 1/4 distance already. Tends to be a very quick race here. And the gap's steadily growing. That was a personal best lap for Cheever. That was a 1:52.755. And the gap between Senna and Mansell steadily growing. And now Cheever alongside Warwick, going down the mile-long straight. And Prost doing the same thing to Johnny Herbert. So there could well be 2 changes for position. And side by side as they approach the braking zone, but it should favour Cheever. He moves to the racing line and causing Warwick to lock up quite heavily. No such lock-up for Johnny Herbert, but he has lost the position to Prost, who's got good traction coming out of the first chicane. Herbert's still in the slipstream. Can he do anything about it going into the Ost curve? He's not a bad slipstream. He's closing in a bit, but Prost, I think, might just be okay for now. That's 301 kilometres an hour going into the Ost curve. Very quick little chicane. I think James Whiteley tends to prefer that chicane compared to the other Ost curve. Why not? It's quite a challenge. Prost has still got Johnny Herbert crawling all over his back. Prost trying to defend a bit, and Johnny Herbert trying to get up alongside into the chicane. And there's going to be contact if they're not careful, but Prost has given him room. And Johnny Herbert retakes that position, but now Prost back in the slipstream. And they're trying to see Cheever's definitely safe from Warwick, so Cheever's definitely got 4th position under control. And Herbert trying to shut the door on Prost, and Prost has just been passed around the outside by Brundle almost. Brundle's got the inside line going into the Sachs curve. And Prost trying to brave it out around the outside, but Brundle's going to take that. No, he isn't. Yes, he is. Brundle retaking that position from Prost, catching him out. So that was started by Johnny Herbert going down that straight. And it's benefited Herbert. Now Prost is going to try and do something about that almost immediately, because he's right up the back of Brundle onto the Nord curve. I wouldn't recommend that. And I think he heard me. Prost back into the slipstream now of Brundle. This is for 7th position now. There's Herbert trying to get away from the pair. Remember, the Renault's not quite as powerful as the Ferrari, but it's okay. And see, the top speed is 309 as they hit the braking zone. So the Renault engine nearly 3 kilometers an hour slower than the Honda in the back of the Tornado. Now then, who's going to have a go at who? Is it going to be Boutsen on Brundle, or is it going to be Brundle back at Prost? It's going to be Brundle trying to get back at Prost going into the Ost curve. I think Brundle's going to manage it. Prost still sort of there. Wow, Brundle cutting the chicane, and off the circuit goes Brundle. Now then, has Prost got through okay? Just about. I think yes, he is just about okay, but he's got Boutsen now right behind him. Just a couple of tenths as they cross the second sector point, going into the final long sector. So Brundle quite optimistic, I'd say, in trying to outbrake Prost going into the Ost curve. Brake too late and went for a spectacular spin. Prost safe from Boutsen, so now he's going to try and pull away a little bit and try and recatch Johnny Herbert. Meanwhile, we are now gone past 1/4 distance. It's lap 12, and Senna has opened up 4.9 seconds over Nigel Mansell. And Maurizio Gugelmin doesn't quite have the pace compared to his teammates, but still sits in a comfortable third, 5 seconds ahead of Eddie Cheever, who himself is 2 seconds ahead of Warwick. Johnny Herbert is 3.2 seconds off of the Gajera driver as we switch to Ayrton Senna. Let's see the second sector point. It is just before the Ost curve, right about there. And he's nearly 1/4 of a second down on his personal best so far, which is the fastest of the race. And it's a 1 minute 51.435. It's consistency that Senna's going to look for at this stage of the race, as we're shuffling through the field and we're trying to locate Prost. He is right there, and let's see, he's on a personal best lap so far. He's only 400ths quicker. He's locked up a little bit at that part of the Ost curve. He's just about okay, so he's pushing, and he's going to try and catch Johnny Herbert. 1.5 seconds to make up. I've lost a little bit of time going through the Ost curve. And down that straight, 303 kilometers an hour was his top speed, going through the Senna chicane. Berger's nearly lapped down already, so that early incident has really cost Gerhard dearly. 1 minute 42 behind, so I don't think he's going to score points unless reliability comes into play, which at Hockenheim it could well do. It tends to be a very punishing circuit for the engines. Rounding the sud curve goes Prost, that's one of them. Here comes another. We'll see what the gap is compared to himself and Johnny Herbert as he crosses the line. There's a 1 minute 53, and he lost a couple of tenths in that second sector. At 4 tenths compared to his personal best, so yeah, he lost about 4 tenths going through that Ost curve. Distant slipstream maybe. He's definitely pulling away from Boutsen. He's 1.8 ahead of the Belgian now, 2 as they went through the first sector point. Another big lockup going into the first chicane. Pushing extremely hard is Prost. He desperately wants to keep in the championship battle. Hasn't gone overly to plan for him this season. He's had 2 second places and 1 6th position. He had a 7th in Monaco, and then an engine failure in Brazil, followed by a transmission failure in Phoenix. somewhat lucky to get a second position at Silverstone, but anyway, he's now battling for sixth position, looking to try and get Johnny Herbert. 1.2 seconds the gap as they went through the second sector point, and still 2 seconds ahead of Boutsen. Behind Boutsen, we've got Jean Alesi, who's desperate for some points in the shake and bake. In fact, shake and bake in general, just desperate for some points. None so far this season, and 4 behind the next best team, 10th position Unbearable. And their 4 points came from Eddie Cheever, who's having a good race. Meanwhile, AJ sit ninth. They had a chance of a podium finish at Paul Ricard. Andre De Cesaris did briefly take third off of Alboreto, but then Alboreto took that back, I assume going into the very fast scene corner. Alboreto took third position in that race. I think Nakajima was second, so that's a good points haul for Willows, who sit fifth in the championship at the moment on 17 points. So 5.5 seconds now is the gap between Senna and Mansell. It'll be 1/3 distance as they complete this lap. We've still got half of it to go. The gap's remaining fairly static at the moment. I believe this is the first commentary I've done since the United States Grand Prix, which was before Christmas Day, so hope everyone had a good Christmas. That's just a little bit of a side topic as we continue to watch the action. Now hit 1/3 distance. Mansell dropping back to 6 seconds now behind Senna. We have a look at Martin Brundle, who is chasing De Cesaris. Brundle down in 17th, so rejoining after his spin at the Ost curve is Brundle, way down the order. Got 10 seconds over PK. I think just saw Nelson coming into shot in the background. How much quicker than De Cesaris is Brundle? It was 1.6 seconds as they went through the second sector point. It should be about 1 second now, but Brundle has a lock-up going into the Agip curve. He survived that because there's quite a nice bit of camber through the corner, so you can carry the speed. If you run a bit wide, the camber will help you back onto the inside line. Of a second as they start their 15th lap. So as the next bit of action near the front of the queue will be whether Prost can catch up to Warwick for 5th position. The gap is 3.3 seconds as they started their 15th lap. We'll see what it is as they start the next lap. In fact, he's disappeared from that 6th position because Johnny Herbert has got ahead. Now, is that pure slipstream, a pure overtake, or has Prost got an issue? At the moment, we look at Brundle trying to get up alongside Cesaris going into the Ost curve. He's already ahead before they even touch the braking zone. So that's 16th position for Brundle. And just further up, and Herbert did just overtake Prost, so it was going into the Senna chicane. So no mechanical issue for Prost at the moment, except that the Renault does not have as much power compared to the Ferrari. Prost trying to brave it around the outside, giving Herbert the room. So these two will battle for a little bit. should really work together, as they do sometimes in the go-karting world, to try and catch up to the driver, or indeed pull away from the driver behind. It's a tactic that happens quite a bit in go-kart sprint racing. Works quite well. But Prost is going to try and have a go back at Herbert. Herbert getting very aggressive, going down the straight into the Nord curve. And yeah, catching up to Herbert a little bit. It's about 3 seconds or so. Catching up to Warwick, sorry. But now Prost back up alongside. Herbert's going down the straight into the first chicane. I wonder if this is their tactic, to use the slipstream to try and catch up to Warwick. Let's see as they go through the Jim Clark chicane, as accelerating away goes Prost. He's going to try and drag Herbert along down the straight going into the Oster curve. Herbert slightly further back than before. 0.6 of a second, in fact, as they cross the second sector point. Prost on a personal best lap. And his personal best is a second off of what Senna managed earlier on in the race. So now Prost has got the measure of Johnny Herbert going through the Senna chicane. Gap is seemingly a bit too big for Herbert to try and re-slipstream past the Frenchman. So now let's see if Prost can catch up to Warwick. He was 2.8 seconds going through the second sector checkpoint and going through the stadium now. It'll be quite a while before we see how much Prost has gained on Warwick by the end of the lap. Got a fair bit of fuel on board, has Prost as well. And it's a bit of a different circuit compared to the usual, whether new tyres or the low fuel load makes the bigger difference. Because the straights are so long and there's not much to do in the corners, then you can run longer if possible. Prost was a second quicker than Warwick in that lap eventually, and 9/10 of that was in the final long sector. So now back down the mile-long straight, there is Prost. We've had another one off at the Sachs curve. Who is it this time? It's definitely not one of the front runners. I wonder if it's Stefano Modena again. Let's see as we switch cameras. There's Senna, who's about to lap Gerhard Berger. It's Johansson this time, so he's had, I presume, a very similar spin compared to Modena. So there he goes, going through the Ajip curve, braking for the Sachs hairpin. Currently in 13th position, trying to chase Nannini, and it's the same again as Modena. Understeering off and then struggling to get back onto the circuit, and then on the grass, and another pathetic spin there. So that's going to drop Stefan Johansson down the order quite considerably. So not quite a good race for JGR Meister this time around. Think the field are going to take a big gulp out of their championship leads, PKs and JGR Meisters. If it does stay like this, actually, Tornado would lead the Constructors' Championship. We've had another yellow flag out at just going into the Jim Clark chicane. It's Jean Alesi, and has had yet another suspension failure. So Shake and Bakes are not building these suspensions properly. The luckless Jean Alesi, poor guy. So we're looking at Prost once again, and he's definitely closing up to the back of Derek Warwick, or 5th position. Wonder if there'll be a chance for 4th for Prost. I think Gugelmin is quite comfortable in 3rd position now. Although quite a way off of Mansell, it'll please the Tornado boss. Round in the Sud curve goes the FJR driver. Cheever in 4th. He's 28 seconds behind Senna, nearly 8 behind Gugelmin. Although he is 5.3 ahead of Warwick, who's only got a 7/10 lead over Alain Prost. So it won't be down the mile-long straight into the Jim Clark chicane where Prost will make his move. It'll be a little bit later on in the lap. Possibly the Ost curve, depending on how good a run he gets coming out of the first Jim Clark chicane. 308 was the top speed you can see on the top there. Even in the slipstream, it wasn't as quick as the Honda engine Tornado. Now here comes the slipstream and pulling up to what would be the outside of the Ost curve, but the inside of this little right flick, and that's 5th position for Prost. Now through the chicane itself, and where's Warwick? Dropped back a long way, so Prost now comfortably in 5th. So now what can he do about Eddie Cheever? He's got 6.4 seconds, or is that 5.4? It's quite hard to see at the top. We'll find out when they complete this lap. But we've still got the Ayrton Senna chicane, which they've gone through now. The Adjit curve, the Sachs curve, the little pith path, and then the double apexed Sud curve. Translates south curve. So into the stadium comes Prost. Meanwhile, Senna's got 7.9 seconds now over Nigel Mansell. And Gugelmin expecting about 21.5 seconds behind Senna. Once he crosses the line, it's 21.9 in fact. He was a fair bit slower than Mansell that time around. It still holds a comfortable 3rd position. Cheever is half a minute now behind Senna as Prost crosses the line. 5.2 or 5.1 seconds, depending on how you look at that, behind Eddie Cheever. And look at Prost, he's already opened up 1.8 seconds over Derek Warwick, who now sits in 6th position. Got a comfortable buffer over Johnny Herbert at the moment, but you never know. Warwick's not been particularly quick this race. There's Nelson Piquet, who's not had a particularly good one after being one of 4 drivers to go off at the Nord curve on lap 2. He's chasing Andrea De Cesaris now. It's 2.3 second gap between the AJ driver and the JGR driver. He's on a personal best this lap. His personal best previously was a 1:52.504, and he does a 1:52.998. So I think most of that time loss will be in the stadium sector, mostly down to the tyres, I think. Tyres getting a little bit worn now as we approach the first pit stop window. They've usually been happening just shortly after half distance to around 2/3 distance. We'll see how they've calculated it this time. So usually between lap 22, 23 to around about lap 30, we're expecting pit stops. Now let's see what the top speed is like in the Judd engine in the back of the JGR. Not quite 300 going into the Ost curve. Bounce. Hitting the curve very heavily, but the cars don't mind it as much as you think. Now Piquet is firmly in the slipstream of the AJ. AJ running the Honda engine. So you never know, they could do something about Piquet going into the stadium. Piquet moving back to the racing line, so quite comfortably ahead of De Cesaris, but now De Cesaris back in a slipstream. Piquet's got good traction though coming out the Senna chicane and should hold on to 15th position no problem. So his next target is Martin Brundle, and that will be for 14th position. And we just had word actually from AJ that the Honda engine is not developing it, because the way we've been developing the engines for this classic season is how we did it in the first 3 seasons of FF1M, seasons 1, 2, and 3 of the Masters era, is where we'd set quizzes, and whoever got the most questions right would get a bigger power boost. But because AJ set the quiz, he's not allowed to develop his engine, so that is very noble of him right there. Here's Martin Brundle, chasing 13th position René Arnoux, one of the widest cars in the field, and that was easy meat for Martin. Next target, a different kind of Martin, and it's platforms 6/7 of the surname of Pierluigi Martini. But only if he can sort out René Arnoux first of all, who's back in the slipstream, trying to get alongside going into the Ost curve, but the Pedersen's quite quick. So a little flick right, and then plunking over the curbs, and then the long right to signify the exit of the Ost curve. René Arnoux still chasing Martin Brundle, with only 1/10 as they crossed the sector point. Meanwhile, Senna's just lost about 1.4 seconds to Mansell on this lap, so I wonder if Senna's hit some traffic, probably in the form of Gerhard Berger. And Prost coming under pressure from Johnny Herbert once again. And that was why he went off at the sud curve, so pushing extremely hard. He lost the position to Derek Warwick, and now coming under pressure from Johnny Herbert once again. So another mistake for Prost, who's quick but not comfortable, it seems. And Herbert nearly nudging the back of Prost going through the first corner. Herbert getting a bit wide on the curb, and that's going to give Thierry Boutsen the opportunity going down the straight. Prost safe for another lap, but he's got Derek Warwick to sort out once again. So Boutsen's taken the position away from Johnny Herbert. Now Boutsen's going to try and do something about Prost, but only if he can fend off Johnny Herbert going down the second long straight, going out of the Jim Clark curve. There's some grandstands on the right. Our right now becomes the driver's left, and a massive dense forest on their right. More grandstands going through the Ost curve. Boutsen comfortable at the moment, going through the Ost curve. Johnny Herbert is still there. Might have to wait until the exit of the stadium complex to make sure that it's truly safe. There's Warwick, who's now back up into 5th position, thanks to the mistake of that driver there, Alain Prost. And Thierry Boutsen still fending off Johnny Herbert so far. I think he's safe going into the Ajip curve. And Senna extending the lead now to Mansell by 9/10 on that lap. So it was indeed traffic and trying to lap Gerhard Berger, where Senna lost 1.4 seconds. Usualmin was 14.9 behind Mansell, now 15.1, so just the 0.2 slower. I say just the 0.2. Mansell has won at least one race this season. Just the one, and that came at Monaco. Whereas Gugelmin has had a good season, had a second place back at the United States Grand Prix, and then extended his points tally by another 1 point at Silverstone. Should really have been the 6 points at Tornado at Silverstone, but Lacey sorted that. I wonder if he'll blame the suspension for that one. So there's Johnny Herbert trying to stay with Thierry Boutsen. And Prost definitely catching up to Derek Warwick once again. We are approaching the pit stop phase now. Well, who's going to be the first to pit? Johnny Herbert doesn't have quite a lot of fuel on board. Certainly not as much as Prost. We've had Piquet and Modena pits, but they were both unscheduled. In fact, Patrese made... No, I don't think he made a pit stop. And there was definitely 2 pitters. It was Berger and Piquet. Down straight number 3. And Boutsen slightly pulling away from Johnny Herbert. So Senna starting another lap. Lap 23 now. And Mansell was 7.5, is now 7.9. So once again, Senna eking out the gap. As they can see, Prost catching up to Derek Warwick now. 5th position. And we have hit half distance. Gugelmin looking very comfortable in 3rd position. How big is his lead over Eddie Cheever? It was nearly 10 seconds as they started the previous lap. It's now over 10 seconds, 10.3. Providing Prost can calm down, I think he does have a chance at 4th position. He's going to try it the inside into the Nord curve. That's not going to end well for any of them. It's definitely not ended well for Derek Warwick as he's just lost a position, but he's back in the slipstream of Prost going down the long straight. Now let's see what Honda does compared to Renault. Looking good so far. This is the Honda in the back of the Gajera. 309, that's interesting. So looks as if Tornado have developed their Honda engine a little bit better in race trim compared to the Gajera. Now here comes Prost once again, trying to get the inside into the Ost curve. It's not a particularly good run. Let's see how he does. Does he hit the right flick? And wow, that's not going to make it. Warwick's not going to make that one. Surely he hasn't. And Proster's got past, as has Bootson and possibly Herbert as well. So once again, Derek Warwick falling foul of braking as late as you possibly can to try and maintain the position. And like Brundle before him, Warwick has lost out, although nothing like as bad as what happened to Brundle. So now through the centre chicane goes this foursome. I expect Prost to pull away a little bit now, particularly in the stadium, as he looks as if he's got the balance quite suited for the stadium section compared to the other field. I don't think it's a downforce thing. I think it's just the Renault engine, slightly less powerful, but possibly a bit more drivable. Gugelmin is the first one to make a pit stop from third position, so he's the first one to blink. There he is, showing fourth position, but he was comfortably ahead of Eddie Cheever before making this pit stop. So now here come the pit stop sequences. 8.4 seconds is his stop time as he exits the pits. And that's right in front of this battle, actually. So slotting in between Herbert and Warwick. Warwick's got the momentum going down the straight. And Warwick has taken that position away from Gugelmin. Now, how quickly can Gugelmin repass him? Because he's on the new tyres. And now Warwick takes 6th, 7th position away from Gugelmin. But now Gugelmin's in the slipstream as we go down the long second straight. I actually measured the length of these straights fairly recently, but I have forgotten. I know the approach from centre chicane to the stadium, as they're nearly contact between two going into the Ost curve. And the length of the straight between centre chicane and Ajip curve is less than 1 kilometre long. It's about 950, about the same as the Ascari into the Parabolica. I know the straight going into the Jim Clark chicane is about 1.6 kilometres long. And then into the Ost curve and the centre chicane, it's about 1,200 metres. I think Mansell's gone through for another lap, so he's been running a bit longer than Gugelmin, at least. Gugelmin struggling to overtake Warwick going into the stadium. Now into the Sachs curve, we've seen a couple of drivers run wide here in the race so far, and they included Stefano Modena and Stefan Johansson. Two Stefans have not got that corner quite well at this stage. Through the Sud curve, is Gugelmin going to try and get a run going into the Nord curve? He's certainly close enough as they start their 25th lap. Just a tenth separating the two, but that's irrelevant. What is relevant is that Warwick has just about held on for now, because here comes Gugelmin back up to his right, trying to overtake Warwick. And down they go. Wasn't a particularly good slipstream before he pulled out, but he has got newer tyres and therefore better braking. Here comes the brakes, and here comes 7th position for Gugelmin. Meanwhile, Prost is edging out the gap over the cars behind him. It's now 2.4 seconds, himself and Bootson. Bootson has got 1.6 seconds over Johnny Herbert. Johnny Herbert will probably be looking in his mirrors now for that man there, Maurizio Gugelmin. Who's going to be the next to pit, I wonder? It looks like it is going to be Derek Warwick, so he's probably had enough of the tyres that he's on. And there he is. He's not got a lot of fuel left. So we'll be seeing Derek Warwick in the pits shortly. So into the pits now comes Derek Warwick for the only stop of the race for him. There's a little left-right before slowing down to roughly 81 kilometres an hour and into the pit box, full of Gajera mechanics. .5 seconds is the stop for Warwick. And there was an Andrew F1 coming into the pits as well. It was Alessandro Nannini, briefly running up in 13th position. Andrew F1's not quite quick in this race. They're going to have to wait until Hungary, which I believe is the next race of the season, before being quick, possibly, again. As they showed well on the tighter circuits, such as Monaco. So maybe another tighter circuit will do their season good. It's actually Monza next, not Hungary. So it's going to be another fast circuit. So bad luck, Andrew F1. As Nigel Mansell comes into the pits from second position, but still rejoin ahead of Cheever. He's got that much of a buffer over the American. If he does, that will do his race quite good. And he stopped 6.5 seconds. That's pretty quick. This is Ansell's only chance of possibly winning the race, unless Senna suffers yet another mechanical drama. See what Gugelmin's pace is like on his newer tyres. And a long way ahead of Cheever. So this is Mansell's time to push. I mean, the gap was about 10 seconds before making the pit stop, so it's a long shot, but it's a shot. And Gugelmin has caught up to Boutsen already. Herbert in the pits. So the new tyre is working quite well for Gugelmin, as he is going to take 5th position away from the Pedersen driver. Showing half a second down on his personal best, but most of that will be behind Boutsen. So going through the first chicane, and there's the grip of new tyres, doing him quite a bit of good. So the next target for Gugelmin will be Prost, unless Prost comes into the pits before Gugelmin can try and overtake him. And now through the Ost curve goes the Brazilian. In a good season for Brazil, actually. So we've got Piquet leading the championship from Ayrton Senna, and Gugelmin 7th in the championship. Not bad. As for the Brazilian teams, Gajera 6th in the championship on 15 points, 1 win from Berger, and then Unbearable have got 4 points, and they're not last in the championship. There's a few more pit stops underway as well. Not for Senna just yet. He continues for another lap. So going a little bit longer than Mansell. Stefano Modena in the pits. As we look at Maurizio Gugelmin. His next target is Alain Prost. It was 3.8 seconds as they crossed the second sector point. And Prost has got a fair bit of fuel on board, so he can go late-ish. But in the final sector, Gugelmin gained 1.3 seconds over the Frenchman. Boutsen not pitting either, so Boutsen may come under pressure from Johnny Herbert because Herbert has pitted. And he wasn't too far behind this lot. I think Herbert rejoined ahead of Warwick. I'll have to double check that one, but I might have just caught a glimpse of that. Senna not coming into the pits this lap, so it's going to be the next lap when Senna makes his pit stop. And he's got a very comfortable 31.6 second buffer over Mansell. Senna has got a little bit of traffic in front of him. It is a JGR, but it shouldn't really be anything to worry about. As he rounds the Sud curve, Rene Arnoux comes into the pits, so the under Andrew F1 making the pit stop. And Senna going through for another lap, and you should see the pit indicator turn yellow, and indeed it does, as he goes through the Nord curve. Mansell sits second. He's likely to remain there after Senna makes the pit stop. Cheever currently sits third. Prost currently sits fourth. Out of the pits comes Rene Arnoux. Stefan Johansson comes into the pits. Meanwhile, we've got Gugelmin fifth, catching up to Prost, but remember, Prost and Cheever have to make their one and only pit stops. So Gugelmin should rejoin back in third position once the pit stops have completed. As Senna goes through the second checkpoint, half a second down on his personal best. No doubt thanks to his tyres getting a little bit old. And Senna doesn't exactly need to push either. He has got his championship rival Nelson Piquet in front of him as Thierry Boutsen comes into the pits, trying to respond, well, the Pedersen responding to the threat of Johnny Herbert. I'm pretty sure that Johnny Herbert did jump Derek Warwick in the pit stops. As approaching the stadium complex, there's Alessandro Nannini, there's Nelson Piquet. They're nearly a lap down on Ayrton Senna. Mansell's closed up a little bit, 29.8 seconds as he crossed the second sector point. Still expect Senna to rejoin in the lead of the race once he rounds the pit path and then the sud curve. Well, one of the sud curves before peeling hard right, jerking the steering wheel hard to the right so that he can get into the pits. No problems so far as he slows down to 81 kilometers an hour and about to turn right into his pit box. And following is Gerhard Berger, who's had a bit of a miserable race for Gajera after spinning off at the first corner. 6.4 seconds, that's a good stop for Senna. Out of the pits, in the lead, no problems at all. He's got an AJ trying to unlap himself. And did I just see Nigel Mansell flying off the circuit there? And we'll have to see that. Yes, I did see Mansell flying off the circuit. So pushing hard, pushing too hard. Out of the race is Nigel Mansell. So that's put a different complexion as to who's going to finish second. It should still be Gugelmin once Cheever. Gugelmin has passed Prost. Now let's see a replay of what's happened to Mansell. So here he goes, pushing very hard into 152.2 on that lap. So turning in too quick, way too quick. No chance of rescuing that one against the tyre barrier. So Mansell suffers a second retirement in a row. He may have retired in France as well. I'm not 100% sure on that one. So there's Prost, who sits in fourth position at the moment, but having yet to make a pit stop. Maybe on the next lap. It won't be on this one. In fact, it should be on the next lap. So he's gone a long way on the first stint. Somebody's gone off at the Sachs curve as Nakajima comes into the pits. It's all starting to kick off a little bit. Who has gone off? It is... I'll find out shortly. As we see Rene Arnoux. Was it Rene Arnoux, I wonder? It wasn't. It's a blown engine for Martin Brundle, so obviously having pulled off at the Sachs curve rather than a mistake this time around. Pulling off on the outside of the circuit, so out of the race is Martin Brundle. So the retirements are starting to kick in now. That's a shame, he was due in the pits this lap as well. The engine didn't quite make it. There's Senna, and there's confirmation of an engine failure for Brundle. Meanwhile, in the pit stop sequences, we've got Cheever's dropped behind Prost somewhere. Now, we haven't seen this. What's happened to Eddie Cheever? He's dropped now behind Alain Prost for third position. Prost now sits third, and there's off the track goes Boutsen, exactly the same as his teammate, except no spin this time. So Boutsen having a clumsy one. And meanwhile, in amongst the pit stop sequences, Michele Alboreto has briefly moved up into position. In fact, Chiva's got no front wing. That's what's happened. So I think he may have hit a loose wheel. Is that possibly from Nigel Mansell's car? I think so. There's Eddie Cheever, and he's about to turn in, and he's about to meet a wheel. So that's bad luck if that's the case. There's the wheel. Wash! That's unlucky for the unbearable driver, who's looking at a very good result. Possibly a fourth, possibly a fourth position. He was due a pit stop anyway, but that's going to cost him a lot more time than he'd wished. So that helps Prost a lot. Prost has got a chance at finishing third in this race. He'll be on the fresher tyres compared to much of the field, such as Derek Warwick, who's got ahead of Johnny Herbert. Either I got that completely wrong about Herbert, or Derek Warwick has got past him somewhere. So much happier on his second set of tyres is Warwick. As into the pits comes the unbearable of Eddie Cheever. Be a slightly longer stop compared to normal because they have to change a front wing as well. Off goes the old one, on comes the new one. Oh, that's good stop. 6.1 seconds for Cheever, who's just rejoined behind Derek Warwick and Johnny Herbert. Still a chance for some points for Eddie Cheever, but not as much as he'd hoped. So a couple of drivers have still to make their first and only stops, and they include the third and fourth place drivers, Prost and Alboreto. Cheever rejoined just ahead of Boutsen. There is Derek Warwick, who is a little bit stuck behind Michele Alboreto, who hasn't stopped yet. It's Alboreto going a very long way into the race before making his stop. But now Warwick has got ahead, and that's fourth position for Derek. He's 26.7 seconds behind Prost, so Prost looking good actually to maintain third position as Senna sets the fastest lap of a 1 minute 50.723. That's a quick lap time, just a message to the field saying, hey, listen, I'm the king of this race. You're not getting past me. And we got Gajera who's saying that a tornado messing up others' races. That's a little bit cruel, but I get what you mean. He also says that Shakenbeck and Pedersen have the silent assassin cars of the field, and that there's always lingering trouble around them. Well, there's one of the Shakenbecks of Johnny Herbert, looking good for some points as Prost comes into the pits. Now, this is crucial if he's going to. He may not get out ahead of Warwick, actually, but it'll be interesting to find out. How long is this stop? It's 6.8 seconds. Where's Warwick? Is that Warwick just coming out of the final corner now? As Prost exits the pits, there is Warwick, and he's rejoined behind. Well, Prost has rejoined in front. So that was a good stint for Prost, despite, I think, one or two mistakes. There was at least one at the Sud curve. Now, can Derek Warwick do anything about Prost? I'm not sure because Prost has got the freshest tyres of all. Cheever's just got ahead of Johnny Herbert. I assume this will be going down the long straight because Cheever's only 3.8 seconds behind Warwick. Cheever's still got a fourth place on the cards. He needs to be careful because he's still got Thierry Boutsen chasing his gearbox. Down the straight into the Ost curve, they're side by side. There's trouble here. There's definitely trouble. There's contact, and that is definitely Boutsen out of the race. There's a lot of wheels flying and more wheels. Herbert has hit some of them. I think Cheever's gotten away with that one. I think Herbert has as well. That's two drivers showing a bit of testosterone there going into the Ost curve. Let's see what happens. You could see, yeah, Cheever just went straight on, giving Boutsen no room, but Boutsen could have cut the chicane. Yeah, I'd agree with Gajera now, saying that Pedersen have the silent assassin cars of the field. Well, there's Prost, there's Warwick, there's Cheever, there's Herbert. I think Cheever and Herbert are okay. So whatever debris was flying about, there you can see the debris there, off the circuit, and there's Boutsen, poor Belgian. His car's just pitifully sliding down to the grass bankment. There's race leader Senna, who's leading a Brazilian 1-2, Senna and Gugelmin. As the yellow flags fly for Boutsen's stationary car, now being cleared away, so Senna can resume pushing. And it is Gugelmin who sits in second position. How big a lead has he got over Alain Prost, I wonder? It's probably too big a lead for Prost to do anything about. So it's been a very good performance from Maurizio Gugelmin. Where did he start on the grid? He was fourth on the grid, so he has been genuinely quick all throughout Hockenheim. There's Prost in third position, now pulling away from Derek Warwick. 2.7 seconds was the gap as they went past the start-finish line. Now 2.9 as they cross the first sector point, and Prost 2/10 quicker in the first sector than his own personal best. Not that surprising because he is on much fresher tyres compared to quite a lot of the field, except for maybe for Alboreto. Still clearing Boutsen's car at the Ost curve. Gugelmin has got pretty much 30 seconds over Prost, and Prost half a second quicker going through the second sector point. Let's watch the Frenchman for a little bit. So now we switch to Eddie Cheever, who is trying to catch up to Derek Warwick, who could still have a fourth position, could Cheever. He's got 4.2 seconds to make up over the Gajera driver through the Agip curve. And then into the Sachs curve goes the Unbearable. Started 12th on the grid, did Eddie? That was a good drive. Johnny Herbert still on course for some points for Shake and Bake. It could be their first of the season. Let's see what sort of lap time Cheever does. He's on a personal best on this one. Previous personal best was a 1:52.4, and Cheever betters that by 0.7 of a second. So he's now into the 1:51s as he chases after Derek Warwick, who was one of the first to pit, and Cheever one of the last. In fact, Cheever was a second quicker than Warwick in that long final sector. Let's see what happens as we go over the first sector. 3/10 gained. So we're definitely going to have a battle for fourth position. There was Johnny Herbert coming into shot. Wonder who's in seventh position now, who has the possibility of scoring some points. I'm trying to remember who's in the race. Struggling to do so. Another 3/10 taken out of Derek Warwick. So at this rate, Cheever should be all over the back of the Gajera within the next 2 or 3 laps. Because if it is a long final sector, 3/10 in the first, 3/10 in the second, could well be up to a second, maybe more. So it could be taking the best part of 2 seconds a lap out of Derek Warwick. It's Nakajima who sits in 7th position, 1 place ahead of Alboreto. That could well change because Alboreto is on new tyres. And Piquet has recovered up to 9th position, which is a pretty good effort considering he was backwards on lap 2. Nannini in 10th, Martini 11th. De Cesaris in 13th position. As the camera, it's Arnoux in 12th, Modena 14th, Berger 15th, and Stefan Johansson 16th. And the retirements, they consist of Thierry Boutsen, a big crash at the Ost curve after colliding with that driver there, Eddie Cheever. Mansell went straight on at turn 1. Brundle out as well with an engine failure, Alesi with more suspension issues, and then Patrese and Palmer both suffered gearbox problems. And Cheever took 1.1 seconds out of Derek Warwick on that particular lap. So the early stop for tyres helped Warwick somewhat, but it's not helping him right now because he's about to come under pressure from Eddie Cheever. I suspect on this lap, Possibly on the next one, Eddie Cheever will be able to have a go. Let's hope it goes a lot cleaner compared to Cheever versus Bootson. 2/10 quicker in the first sector, and a personal best in the first sector as well. Not quite as quick in the second sector, still 3/10 quicker overall. Senna starts lap 36. He's got 10 laps to go, and he had a 29.1 second lead over Maurizio Gugelmin as they started the previous lap. I suspect it's going to be a little bit more than that. As Cheever continues to close in on Derek Warwick. It won't be on this lap, it will possibly be on the next one. There's Prost, who sits in third position. And Senna was, in fact, 1.4 seconds quicker than Gugelmin on that lap. Prost was 56.4 behind Senna at the start of the previous lap. What's the gap between the two now? Prost about to cross the line shortly. Derek Warwick's on a personal best lap, believe it or not. Prost was 3/10 slower, so Senna's definitely got the legs of everyone. And on his way, providing things don't go wrong for the Darkfire, to a third win of the season. One in Brazil, one in Silverstone. Let's see what happens in the final 10 laps or so. Now Cheever in the slipstream of Derek Warwick. Let's see the top speed of this Unbearable. It's going to go into 310. And on the brakes as he hits 311 kilometers an hour. And now he's firmly in the slipstream. There could be some more fireworks going into the Ost curve. I've had one incident. He's been involved in one incident already with Thierry Boutsen. I think he's not close enough this time. Warwick just moving a little bit to the middle before entering the Ost curve. No such problems for both drivers this time, but now Cheever in the slipstream. He's going to get a run going into the Senna chicane underneath the Foster's Bridge. Trees on both sides. And now alongside Warwick going down the straight. And that's fourth position. Is he going to move over to the braking zone? Still in the middle, so making sure of that. He's definitely made sure of that one now. Cheever is up to fourth position for the Unbearable. Warwick down to fifth. Now is Johnny Herbert's going to do something about the Gajera driver. At least they're all on course for some points. And Senna another 1.5 seconds quicker than Gugelmin on that lap. I think he's having fun, is Ayrton. Prost still sits in third position. I imagine pulling away comfortably enough. It was 9.7 seconds as they crossed the second sector point. And the gap as they cross the start-finish line is 10.2, so Prost pulling away from Cheever. Remember, Cheever did have to overtake Derek Warwick on that lap. So I think the next point of interest in this race will be whether Johnny Herbert can catch up to Derek Warwick before the end of the race. He's got 4.6 seconds to make up over that driver there. 4.5 seconds was the gap as they crossed the first sector point, so Herbert's 1/10 quicker. Let's see how much quicker in the second sector. It's about the same, so Johnny Herbert's not exactly catching up to Derek Warwick. They've got fairly, well, Shaken Baker running a Ferrari engine, Gajera running a Honda engine, and development does seem to favour Gajera, actually. They got more questions right in the quiz, and Shake and Bake therefore possibly don't have quite as powerful an engine compared to the Gajera. So I think Warwick may well just about have the measure over Johnny Herbert. We'll see what the gap is as they cross the start-finish line. Because you never know, Herbert could be quicker in the stadium section. Through the pith path goes Herbert. And then these sud curves. That's one of them, and there's another one. No such problems for Derek Warwick. As he crosses the line, now 2.5 seconds off of Eddie Cheever. Johnny Herbert, 4.1 seconds. So he gained roughly half a second on that lap. At this pace, with 7 or 8 laps to go, he may have a chance, but he's going to have to pull something particularly special out of the bag. And Piquet versus Alboreto now. Piquet still on his recovery drive. And he's got Nakajima right in front of him as well. So Piquet's got a chance at 7th, possibly 6th, depending on if the top 6 have reliability issues. And it does look as if Piquet is going to score a point, and it is going to be down to reliability, because Nakajima was about 20 seconds behind Johnny Herbert as they started this lap. Piquet did set a quicker first sector than his previous personal best. Not quite as quick in the second sector, maybe down to traffic, or maybe his quick first sector was down to the slipstream. But there he is, he's chasing Satoru Nakajima, not Kazuki Nakajima. This is Daddy Nakajima. One of many Japanese drivers that Formula One has seen, but one of the few that haven't had a podium. Same can be said for his son Kazuki. Nakajima just watching it a little bit going into the stadium, making sure that Piquet doesn't do something rash. Unlikely, Piquet has been a very consistent driver this season. And it was his consistency plus his 2 wins at Imola and at Paul Ricard. That's why he's leading the championship. And Nakajima really erratically driving there, making sure to try and keep Piquet behind him, but it's not going to work, because there's Piquet alongside him now, down the mile-long straight. And there's Alboreto behind, just watching these two battle for a bit. And then possibly Alboreto may get in on the action. Piquet hits the racing line. Senna's back in the pits. So I wonder if he's had another drama, and whether that drama will be enough. How much time will he have lost? There he is in the pits. And out of the pits, where is Gugelmin? And it's caused by a loose wheel this time, so that's not what you want around Hockenheim, or indeed any circuit. So out of the pits comes Ayrton Senna, and he's still in the lead, so no drama. Well, is there a drama? Because there's the 2 AJs, and the AJs are now in battle with each other. And both of them tucked into the slipstream of Ayrton Senna now, going through the long straight. Just a bit too far away from Gugelmin, so the problem occurred late on. Here's an AJ unlapping himself, going into the Jim Clark chicane. That'll be down to the momentum coming out of the Nord curve and Senna coming out of the pits. And now, on a new set of tyres, Senna can rebuild his lead once again. And possibly set a new fastest lap. There he goes past Stefano Modena going into the Ost curve. No problems. So Gugelmin was 7.3 seconds as they behind Senna as they cross the second sector point, going into the final sector. Oh, Gugelmin nearly found himself in cloud 9 there as Modena locks up massively going into the chicane. It could well be De Cesaris. They've got very similar helmets, the 2 AJs. There's Berger going into the stadium. It is Modena that we're looking at, who unlapped himself briefly before De Cesaris got back ahead. before Senna got back ahead of Modena. I am a little bit ill, so don't worry if I get things wrong. Through the pith path goes Modena. Through the sud curves goes Modena. And out of the sud curves onto the start-finish straight to start. This will be his 40th lap because he's now a lap down on Ayrton Senna. And PK is behind both Willows. So something interesting has happened there. And we are about to find out. And it looks like an instant at the Ost curve once again. So there he is trying to get past Nakajima, and he does manage that, but carries way too much speed, and that was ambitious from PK as he clunks the curbs at about 50 miles an hour too quick. So he's dropped now behind the two Willows. Is still Nakajima ahead of Alboreto. And with 5 laps to go, Senna holds an 8.7 second lead over Maurizio Gugelmin. And Prost sits in third behind Senna, 29.2 seconds. And about 20.5 seconds behind Maurizio Gugelmin. So Prost now looking a bit lonely in third position because he's got 12 seconds over Eddie Cheever. And then Cheever has got 6.5 seconds over Derek Warwick. He's maintaining the gap just about over Johnny Herbert. With 5 laps to go, 3 seconds separates those two. I think Warwick may just about be safe. So Senna is a 10th quicker, nearly 2/10 quicker compared to his previous best, which is the fastest lap of the race so far. A 1 minute 50.723. This is the long sector where I think you're going to see the advantage of new tyres. So through the left of the Sachs curve goes Senna, and then the pith path, and then the 2 sud curves. I'm expecting a low 1 minute 50 to about a high 1 minute 49 by Senna as we cross the start-finish line. There he goes. What's the lap time? A 1 minute 50.1. So a low 1 minute 50 indeed. Can he go even quicker than that, I wonder? He's got some slipstream in front of him. That's of Gerhard Berger. And in front of Berger, there is an Andrew F1. And just to show you how advantageous new tyres are, Gugelmin was over 3 seconds slower than Senna on that lap. And look at that, Berger challenging Rene Arnoux going through the Jim Clark chicane. So that's a battle that hasn't been resolved just yet. It's a battle for 12th position. And through goes Berger. Arnoux dropping back quite a bit on that straight. That could well just be the power of the Gajera. Gajera did have a good result for the quiz. And there goes Senna to lap Arnoux through the Ost curve. Next target, still Berger, but now there's one less car in front of Berger. Through the Ayrton Senna chicane goes Berger, and then the driver himself may lap him going into the stadium, depending on how courteous Gerhard Berger is. He's usually quite courteous when it comes to back markers. I don't think Senna was close enough on that occasion. Definitely be close enough going through the stadium on his newer tyres. There goes Senna up the inside into the Sachs curve to put a lap on his mate Gerhard Berger. And then once we complete this lap, it'll just be 3 more laps to go for the quick Brazilian. Controlled the race beautifully at Silverstone and has done the same pretty much again at Hockenheim, despite a loose wheel drama just a few laps ago. So Gugelmin will cross the line. That was another 2.7 seconds lost on Senna, but Gugelmin, I imagine, will be pretty happy in second position. Although I suspect Tornado will be hoping that it'll be the other Tornado of Nigel Mansell in second, who crashed out of the first corner Trying to chase down Senna, trying to make the undercut work. And it didn't go to plan for Nigel Mansell. So Senna's on another fairly quick lap. 600ths down on his personal best, going through the second sector point. But with some clear track in front of him, we'll see what he can do. Meanwhile, Prost is bringing the gap down to between himself and Gugelmin. It's 17 seconds now. But I think Gugelmin will be just pacing himself a bit now. Was one of the first to pit, and Prost was one of the last to pit. So that's why the gap is going down between those two. Cheever looking quite comfortable in fourth position now. And Johnny Herbert is still closing the gap between himself and Derek Warwick. It's 2.2 seconds. He'll need a little bit more than that. But he has got 3 laps left to make the difference. And if Johnny Herbert can get 2 points out of this race, then that'll please the shake and bake boss, who's had a very torrid time of it with unreliability, particularly for Jean Alesi, who's had 3 suspension failures now in this season. And then he's had a transmission failure, I believe, at Phoenix. And then an absolutely shambles at Silverstone, taking out Nigel Mansell on the penultimate lap. So that'll do Shake and Bake's confidence quite a lot of good. Just the 1 point I imagine he'll be happy with, but he'll be even happier with 2 points. Keep an eye on the gap between those two as they cross the line in due course. They are about 55 seconds behind Senna, which is about half a lap. Cheever just crossing the line, 47.9 seconds. That's about 1.7 seconds slower than Senna's. Cheever on fairly new tyres as well, about the same as Prost. Johnny Herbert is going to get a chance. He is only 1.1 seconds behind Derek Warwick now as they start their penultimate lap. And Piquet has got ahead of both of the Willows as well. So Piquet recovering after that ambitious attempt at the Ost curve. And there's Herbert. Through the Jim Clark chicane, there you go. He was a 10th quicker than Warwick in the first sector. Probably about the same again down this straight. Keep an eye on the gap as Warwick crosses it. Piquet about 21 seconds behind Johnny Herbert. And another 10th gained Herbert on Warwick. And Senna's just started his final lap as well. So pretty much half a lap. Not quite in the slipstream yet, but he has got 1 more lap to have a go. Braking nice and late, going into the Senna chicane. It used to be called the Brems curves, actually. That was the second Brems curve. The Ost curve has its own unique name. Into the Agip curve goes Warwick, then Herbert. And they'll have 1 more lap to do battle. Going through the left at the Sachs curve, where we've seen a couple of spinners and an engine failure. As Senna extends the gap once again, 20.4 seconds. And Prost now only 13.5 seconds behind. So he's given that a good go. And it's just 0.6 of a second, the gap between Derek Warwick and Johnny Herbert through the Nord curve. Warwick's safer now, but... And Gajera predicting by the second chicane and seal the deal. Well, let's see if your prediction will come true. At the moment, he is in the slipstream. Warwick was actually a 10th quicker that time around, so could well be into the 3rd chicane, I reckon. Maybe into the stadium. That's a good exit for Johnny Herbert. Not enough on this occasion, I don't think. Although he's getting close. We will switch back to Senna as he crosses the start-finish line to take his 3rd win of the season. So that's win number 3 for Ayrton Senna, closing the gap between himself and Nelson Piquet. So exiting the Ost curve now is these two. I don't think Herbert's close enough, so it might well have to be into the stadium. But if Johnny Herbert is going to overtake Warwick, really going for it on the final lap. And Warwick exits the chicane, as does Herbert. I think Warwick is safe, actually. Don't think Herbert was close enough. And they're about to enter the Ajip curve. Battle for 5th position, so they'll both get points anyway, providing they don't unexpectedly stuff it into the wall at the Sachs curve. And it should be Gugelmin coming home in 2nd position, with Prost 3rd and Cheever 4th. And James Whiteley is very happy about Senna's 3rd win of the season. A simple yes. Out of the final corner comes these battling duo, and it is going to be Derek Warwick who takes 5th position from Johnny Herbert. So that's the top 6, and Piquet out of the points. And there's the race winner, Ayrton Senna, accepting the plaudits from one marshal waving a blue flag. Behind Senna, that is the lapped Gerhard Berger. And Maurizio Gugelmin taking another 2nd position for Tornado. So I think, actually, Tornado will still be ahead of Darkfire in the championship. The constructors, that'll be just by 1 point. And I think JGR Meister will still hold on to the lead of the championship. They'll be on 32 points. Tornado will now be on 30, and Darkfire will be on 29. So it's getting close between those 3 now. And it's getting closer between Piquet and Senna in the Drivers' Championship as well. The gap between those two, just 2 points. Piquet on 31 and Senna on 29. 2nd in the championship, I think it will still be Nigel Mansell, but Prost will now be equal on points. And he's just had a blown engine right at the last lap. So there's slight more action even on the slowdown lap. And there's confirmation of the results. Senna from Gugelmin, from Prost, from Cheever, from Warwick, from Herbert, and Piquet out of the points in 7th. And it's Michele Alboreto who did finish ahead of his teammate Satoru Nakajima in the end, 8th and 9th for the 2 Willows. Martini 10th, the last one on the lead lap, Alessandro Nannini. And then Gerhard Berger 12th with a smoking Reni Arnoux in 13th, and Stefano Modena in 14th position. And it'll be his teammate Andrea De Cesaris in 15th. And yes, I do believe that Mansell and Prost will be tied on 17 points. They'll be for 3rd in the championship now, but Mansell ahead on countback because he has a win. Prost doesn't. So we go from one fast circuit to another fast circuit. We go from Hockenheim to Monza. That'll be round 8 in the 1989 FF1M Championship, and we shall see you for then.